Thank you, Madam Moderator. It's an honor to join this closing panel and to contribute to a discussion that stands at the heart of the United Nations vision for a just and peaceful world. I speak today from the perspective of an educator and practitioner engaged with higher education on peace, human rights, and development, fields that increasingly demand a global, not merely national lens. I work as a professor at the University for Peace, UPeace, which was established by the United Nations in 1980 and is headquartered in Costa Rica. At UPeace, we take inspiration from our charter, which stipulates that, and I quote, "The university is established with a clear determination to provide humanity with an international institution of higher education for peace, and with the aim of promoting among all human beings the spirit of understanding, tolerance, and peaceful coexistence, to stimulate cooperation among peoples, and to help lessen obstacles and threats to world peace and progress in keeping with the noble aspirations proclaimed in the Charter of the United Nations." End of quote. At a time of profound global uncertainty marked by geopolitical divides, technological disruption, and the resurgence of conflict, our systems of education bear significant ethical responsibility. As we have been hearing since last 2 days, education is not only a human right in itself, it is the foundation upon which our collective capacity to cooperate, to reason ethically, and to imagine shared futures depends. Now, I've been asked to speak about education on global governance. And when we speak about this topic, we refer to the formation of citizens who understand how global challenges are managed through collective decision-making, multilateral institutions, and shared norms. It is education that equips learners to connect the principles of peace, human rights, and sustainability as mutually reinforcing pillars. In this sense, SDG 4.7, which has been referred to quite a lot, is quite central because it calls for education that fosters global citizenship, human rights values, gender equality, and respect for cultural diversity. Yet we must acknowledge that persistent gaps remain. Access to quality education that builds understanding of global governance remains uneven. In many systems, citizenship education continues to focus within national borders, while the global dimension, the study of institutions such as the United Nations, the international financing and trading institutions, the regional institutions of cooperation, and more generally, the international and regional order remains only peripheral. Such education is important because, on the one hand, global governance is very much needed to address common concerns of humankind, such as sustainable development, climate change, peace, human rights, pandemics, etc. In an era where hyper-nationalism and my country first approaches are rife, it is vital to reinforce that many problems that affect everyone globally can only be addressed through cooperation and global governance. However, it is also important for education to play a role in reforming institutions of global governance. It is important that citizens understand how current models of global governance can limit the policy space of states to realize their right to development and the right to peace. For example, education should provide tools to citizens to critically examine why their governments do not allocate budgets to education and health. Why do local banks charge exorbitant interest rates on loans to farmers? Why there persists rampant corruption in their civil service? Yes, there are obviously national reasons behind these, but it is also important to factor in that perhaps the International Monetary Fund may have imposed conditionalities on the government to reduce social spending or charge higher local interest rates or reduce salaries or perks for civil servants. There are models of progress worth building upon. Across regions, we see increasing number of universities incorporating global citizenship and peace education into their curricula. Model United Nations programs have given thousands of young people a first-hand experience in negotiation, empathy, and collective problem solving. UNESCO's Global Citizen Education Initiative and our own work at UPeace have shown that learning about global governance can be participatory, experiential, and transformative. Crucially, education on global issues gains legitimacy when it is contextualized. regional as well as indigenous approaches translate universal principles into locally grounded realities. This connection between the global and the local must remain a design principle in all educational frameworks for peace and human rights. Allow me to suggest some policy directions. First, global governance education is far too important to be limited only to the social sciences and should be mainstreamed across all levels: formal, informal, non-formal, and lifelong learning. This includes a decolonized approach to teaching human rights, a curricular approach that pays equal attention to non-Eurocentric human rights norms, such as the right to development and the right to peace. The UN Declaration on the Right to Peace of 2016 stipulates, and I quote, that international and national institutions of education for peace shall be promoted in order to strengthen among all human beings the spirit of tolerance, dialogue, cooperation, and solidarity. And it goes on to say that to this end, the University for Peace should contribute to the great universal task of educating for peace by engaging in teaching, research, postgraduate training, and dissemination of knowledge. At UPeace, we have worked very hard to ensure a truly decolonized global governance education. Second, teachers and educators must be equipped with the resources and training to integrate the complexities of global governance into their classrooms, to teach not only about institutions, but also the values and benefits of cooperation, dialogue, and empathy. These are not abstract ideals. They are essential civic competencies. Third, partnerships between universities, United Nations bodies, and civil society networks should be encouraged to co-create curricula and develop simulation-based activities. Such initiatives can demystify global decision-making and empower young people to act as agents within it. This is especially important in view of the increasing disillusionment about multilateralism and the United Nations system that I see among many young people today. Fourth, inclusive digital platforms are vital. If knowledge about global governance continues to be concentrated in a few languages or regions, we reproduce the very inequalities that global cooperation aims to resolve. Finally, financing, especially through international cooperation, is key. It is far less costly to cultivate understanding through classrooms than to rebuild societies fractured by misunderstanding and violence. Dear colleagues, at UPeace, we believe that education is the quiet architect of peace. It shapes imaginations long before treaties are signed or resolutions are adopted. If we aspire to strengthen multilateralism and human dignity, we must begin in the spaces where minds are formed and values are transmitted. Our institutional motto, which I firmly believe in, is if we want peace, we must prepare for peace. And there is no better way than education. Thank you.